At the beginning of the year, I recommended a book based off Taylor Swift songs, where I basically chose a book where there was some element or a storyline that reminded me of Taylor Swift lyrics, and today I thought it would be a good idea to do that again, and we are going to do the same thing. I'm going to recommend you a book based off a Taylor Swift song, and the reason why I will recommend a book will be based off some storyline in the lyrics that I think it's very similar to the one on the book, or some specific lyric of the song that I think really encapsulates one book. So let's start. Let's stop rambling. At the first video, I had 13 books to recommend. In this one, I decided to do a little bit less. I'm doing 7 books. Also, in the first video, I think I recommended books based... not recommended books, but I ordered the recommendations based off albums. In this one, I think I'm going to order based off genres. So we are going to start with the rom-coms. So the first song that I have for this video is Sweet Nothing, which is the song that tells the story of this relationship where it's kind of wholesome. The other person doesn't really want something from the other. It's just kind of like comfortable love sort of relationship. Some people think this song is romantic. I also saw some people think the song it's not very romantic. It's not about a very healthy relationship. Personally, I enjoy the song, and there is this one lyric that really reminds me of one book. So if you like Sweet Nothing, I recommend reading The Right Move by lesdeuxtigres, which is actually a book I have a reading vlog on, a whole reading vlog dedicated just to the series that book's part of. So I recommend checking that out if you want to know more about my thoughts, what I thought was good and what was bad about this book. But spoiler alert, I really enjoyed this book. But The Right Move, it follows Ryan and Indy. Ryan is this very famous, one of the best basketball players of his generation, an NBA star, and he's also very much of an introvert. He doesn't go out much, in part because he doesn't like the attention. And he has a twin sister, and his twin sister's best friend, Indy, she just got out of a very long relationship, and she used to live with the guy, but now because they broke up, she no longer lives with him. And at the moment, at the beginning of the book, she can't really afford to pay rent at a good place in Chicago. So Ryan's twin sister, who is Indy's best friend, asks him for letting her crash and basically stay in his spare bedroom / rent his spare bedroom for a few months while she gets settled financially. And the thing is, Ryan and Indy, they have already met before, but they didn't have the best first impression of each other. So at the beginning of this renting arrangement, it's kind of weird because they are not necessarily close. They don't have the best impression of each other. Also, they know Indy is just there because her best friend and Ryan's sister is basically forcing them to live together, because Ryan doesn't really need a roommate, and Indy isn't necessarily friends with Ryan. But as the story goes on, we find out that Ryan is having trouble with his GM because Ryan just recently became captain of the basketball team, but he and the general manager, they don't have the best relationship, in part because the general manager, he thinks Ryan doesn't have the best work-life balance, and Ryan's just trying to befriend his general manager / form a better relationship. And he overhears from one of the guys on the team that a good way to form this better relationship with the general manager is by having their partner befriend the general manager's wife. So Ryan goes to talk with this general manager, and while they are chatting, he realizes that the fact that he seems kind of unapproachable, very workaholic, is the reason why his general manager doesn't really like him that much. In a fit of anxiety, Ryan ends up blurting out that he has a girlfriend, except that Ryan actually doesn't have a girlfriend. But Indy, she happens to be walking down the corridor where the general manager's office is, because her key for the apartment is not working, and Ryan, again in a fit of anxiety, just points at her and says, "Hey, that's my girlfriend." So now Ryan needs to convince Indy to go along with his lie and pretend to be his girlfriend, and they do that by kind of doing a compromise where Indy will play his fake girlfriend in front of the general manager, and Ryan in return will go to her childhood friend's wedding with her, where she's being a bridesmaid and where her shitty ex-boyfriend will be at. And the reason why I decided to pair up Sweet Nothing with the right move is because of the bridge. Because in this book we follow as Ryan that he find out that Ryan has these voices that keep imploring him to do more, and in this book he finally finds someone to whom he can admit that he's just too soft for all of it. And also I really enjoyed this book. I think Ryan is one of the best book boyfriends ever. Well, now let's move on to the second song for this video, and that song is Paper Rings. And in this song we basically hear the story about someone that would marry their partner with paper rings. They would marry their partner on spot because they just love them that much. And for this song, I actually picked another book in the Windy series, which is the same series as The Right Move. And it is a series of interconnected standalone novels, so you don't need to read it in order. But the book in question is Play Along. And in this book we follow Isaiah and Kennedy. Isaiah is a baseball player and he's very much a golden retriever and a boy obsessed. He has been in love with Kennedy ever since he first saw her. He has this huge crush on her. And Kennedy, she's basically the athletic trainer on the baseball team. And Kennedy, she was engaged to this guy for many years, but then they break up and the guy ends up going to date and get engaged to her stepsister. And the book starts with Isaiah and the rest of the baseball team on a bonding trip to Vegas. And there, when they go to this club, they bump into Kennedy, who is on her stepsister's bachelorette party, to which she was pretty much forced to go to. She doesn't want to be there, and she's kind of trying to run away from her stepsister and the mean girls that are on this trip. And Isaiah decides to help her run away from the club, and they go out and they start drinking and they talk about why she was trying to run away from these girls, and then they continue drinking and they get very drunk and they get married in Vegas. The next day they are set on getting an annulment, but by the time they get back to Chicago they find out that someone actually recognized Isaiah, took a picture of them, and now they are first page in a local sports newspaper. And the team knows about it. And the thing is, the team has this clause where it prohibits fraternization between players and staff. So Kennedy will lose her job if they get this relationship, this marriage annulled because she fraternized with one of the players. But if they stay married, she doesn't get fired because in this clause, if you are in a very serious relationship, like you're married to one of the players, there's no problem. The team won't fire you. You just need to be professional when you are on the team's facilities. So Kennedy and Isaiah end up on this marriage of convenience so she can keep her job. And I think it's kind of obvious why I picked Paper Rings to play along, because Isaiah he married Kennedy on spot. He married Kennedy because she wanted to get back at her ex. But let's move on to the third song, and that is Mirrorball. So in Mirrorball, it's basically a song for the people pleasers of the world. It's about someone that will transform themselves in order to please others. I read this book earlier in the year, and the female main character, she's just that good of a people pleaser. She works part-time as a fake girlfriend. She's just that good. And that book is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. In Love Theoretically, we follow Elsie and Jack. So Elsie is an adjunct physics professor at multiple colleges around Boston, but because being an adjunct professor doesn't pay that well, she also works part-time as a fake girlfriend, and one of her favorite clients is Jack's brother. And Jack sees right through Elsie. He knows there's something sketchy about her relationship with his brother. He just can't pinpoint exactly what's sketchy. And that wouldn't be that much of a problem, except that Elsie is going to be interviewed by MIT to be a tenured professor. And when she gets to the interview, she finds out that Jack isn't who she thought he is. Jack isn't the PE professor she thought he was. He's actually a tenured professor at MIT, and he will be one of the people responsible to deciding whether or not she gets the job. And on top of that, Jack is the person that wrote this paper years ago that discredited a lot of her field and infuriated a lot of her field, and she has a one-sided beef with him because of the paper. Just like the previous books, I personally really enjoyed this book. It's just so funny, it's classic Ali Hazelwood, and I think there was really great writing, and I loved how Jack, just like most of Ali Hazelwood's characters, male main characters, he's very tall. But in this book she describes him beautifully by comparing him with things like a fridge or Mount Rushmore. But the reason why I think Love Theoretically matches with Mirrorball is just because Elsa, she's just that much of a people pleaser, and she will literally mold herself in order to please people. If you like Mirrorball, I think you might like Love Theoretically. Let me turn on the light because it's getting kind of dark in this room, so the light might get not that great. And we are back with overhead lights on, so you can see more. Sorry if the lighting it's bad. But let's go to the next song and the next book I will be recommending in this video. And the song in question is LOML. So the reason why I picked the song, LOML is basically about a failed relationship. It's basically about a relationship someone had high hopes for, but ended up being very frustratingly bad and ending in a lame way. And the reason I paired up LOML with the song is just because of the bridge, to be honest. Because I don't think the whole song matches with this book specifically, but there are parts of it that I think really matches. And the book in question is one of my favorite books for this year, and it is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is advertised as a second-gen romance, but I think it's also a coming-of-age story. In Happy Place we follow Harriet. She's an aspiring neurosurgeon, and she recently went through a very devastating breakup with Wayne. They were together for many years, they were actually engaged for many years, and then he kind of breaks up with her one day through a phone call. It's a very lame goodbye, and then 1 year later they still haven't told their friend group that they broke up. But every year the friend group takes a 1-week vacation to one of their friends' beach house, and it is the time of the year for them to go on this trip, and they still haven't told their friends, and they ended up needing to pretend they're still together during this trip because they just don't want to tell their friends at the moment because there are a lot of things going on. First of all, the cabin they go every year is being sold, so they don't want to ruin this last trip to this place that is very special to their friend group, but also 2 of their friends are getting married and the only people invited are them and another couple of friends, so they don't want to make it weird and make this weekend all about them. And the reason why I paired LOML to Happy Place, it's because first of all, it was such a lame goodbye for Wayne. It was just so lame. And also because I feel like Harriet feels like Wayne was the loss of her life, and that's why I think if you like LOML, you will like Happy Place. And personally I really liked it. It's one of my favorite books of the year. But let's move on to the next song in this video, and we are also changing genres. So we have Guilty as Sin. So in Guilty as Sin we follow our main character basically fantasizing about someone else, and it is implied by context that our main character, she is in this struggling relationship, this relationship that it is basically dead, and now she fantasizes about some other person they met. And if you like guilty as sin, I think you might like Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. This book will follow an unnamed narrator, and she is a college professor at a fancy upstate New York college, and her husband, with whom she has an open marriage with, he's being investigated for having affairs with his students. There was consent in the affairs, but he's still being investigated, and this investigation is impacting her life, not necessarily a positive manner, and her life is basically in turmoil, and she's rethinking a lot of things, including her marriage. And then at the beginning of the book she meets Vladimir, who is the new professor at the college, and he's this up-and-coming, very hyped-up author, and he's also very much younger and beautiful. And after he goes visit her one day to deliver his book, they have a moment, and from that moment on she kind of develops an obsession with him, and she starts fantasizing about him. So just like in the song, if she never touched his skin, how can she be guilty as sin? Now let's move on to the next song in this video, and to be completely honest, I really love this song, but I'm not particularly a fan of this book. But I saw someone comment, I don't remember where, but I think it was Reddit, and someone was drawing a comparison between this song and this book, and after I saw it, I can't deny, I think the storyline, they match up. So the song in question is Ivy, and in the song the narrator, it is promised to marry and later is married to this man, but then there is a third person that shows up. Okay, helicopter. Okay, let's go back. But basically a third person shows up and they have feelings for this person, and kind of chaos erupts around this. And the book, I think, matches Ivy. It is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Personally, I found this book kind of boring at most parts, but I do think it matches Ivy. So basically in Wuthering Heights we start the book with Catherine the First, and her father kind of adopts this gypsy boy called Heathcliff, who he doesn't have the best manners or necessarily fits the beauty standards of the time, but she and Heathcliff, they have this magical connection. They are basically soulmates. But one day when they are roaming the heights, Catherine suffers a little accident and she ends up spending a few months living with the Lintons, who are kind of their neighbors, and they are a very wealthy aristocratic family that fits all the modes of behavior and beauty standards of the time. And while Catherine is living with the Lintons, she becomes really close with the Linton kids. But the Linton kids and the Lintons in general, they are not the biggest fans of Heathcliff because of his manners. Many years later, Catherine decides to marry Edgar Linton, which is one of the Linton kids, and Heathcliff overhears her saying she will marry him, and her reasoning why she chose Linton over him, and then he kind of disappears. And then many years later, he shows up again, out of the blue. But this time he's a very wealthy man, but his money came from... nobody really knows where his money came from. And while he was away, Catherine and Linton, they got married, they have this very happy relationship. It's not necessarily the soulmate kind of relationship, but it is a very nice relationship, and they are expecting their first child. And Heathcliff, he shows up again, and because Linton is not the biggest fan of Heathcliff, and Heathcliff has this passionate hatred towards Linton because he married the love of his life, chaos erupts. In the words of the philosopher Taylor Swift, so yeah, there's a fire, it's a goddamn fire of my life and you started it. So that's why I think Ivy and Wuthering Heights, they match up. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of this book, I definitely prefer the song. But also another PSA, I see some people saying this book is a romance and it's so romantic. Babe, this book is not romantic at all. Don't enter this book thinking this will be the love story of a lifetime, that this will be the best romance novel you ever read. This is a book about Unhinged Revenge. This is a book about cycles of abuse. The characters are very much unlikable. Now let's move on to the last song in this video, and that is 7. So 7, we follow these kids and they become really good friends, and one of the kids, their father, he's not always in the best of moods. So the book that I decided to match up with 7 is The Secret Garden. In The Secret Garden, we follow this little girl. She used to live in India with her parents, who were not very affectionate, and then basically her whole family and the staff in her house, they die, I think, of malaria. And she's shipped back to the UK to be shipped to live with a distant relative, who is her closest family. And her uncle, he's not necessarily the most affectionate or has the best humor. He's very absent, he's never in the house. And that's because his wife passed away. He's not the happiest, so he's very absent. And she's always roaming this house, exploring this house. And then one day she finds out that there is this secret garden which used to belong to his late wife, and the garden has been locked up for many years. And she finds the key, she enters the secret garden, and she meets the brother of one of the servants, and she becomes really good friends with this other kid. And one day when she's exploring the house, she hears these weird sounds. She tries to find out what it is, and she then meets another kid who is the same age as her, and he's basically her cousin. And basically these 3 kids, they go and they try to fix the garden and become really good friends. And personally, I really like the story, I really like the book, and I think The Secret Garden correlates to 7 because both the song and the book, they follow these kids who become really good friends, and they create all these schemes to break the rules, maybe run away, and they have this magical space, which is this garden. And yeah, I think the two, if you like 7, the song, you might like The Secret Garden. That's actually all the 7 books I have to recommend for you today. If you have any recommendations of book you think matches up with a Taylor Swift lyric, please let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel so you can get new videos about fashion and books in your subscription box. And I hope to see you very, very soon for another video. So yeah, bye!